Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a recommendation video for audiobooks, and I saw a similar video to this on the channel Mercy's Bookish Musings, I think it is. I will link that video down below because it inspired me to think about audiobooks that are very special, that are just more than reading the book with your eyeballs. So I wanted to recommend you a couple of audiobooks today, and I would love for you to recommend me some special audiobooks. So if you have any recommendations for audiobooks that were really special to you, then definitely let me know. I think there's quite a few out there that I haven't listened to yet, so there's always a room for more on my wish list, but maybe not so much room. I recently noticed that my audiobook wishlist is over 400 books, so we'll see if I ever get to all of those. But today let's talk about some really special ones. So the first audiobooks I want to recommend are ones that have a special narration style where I feel like the book is enhanced through that narration style. And the first one of those is Sadie. And in this book, we are following a girl who is looking for her missing sister, I think. And we have kind of a dual timeline, but with one timeline, we're following this main character, Sadie, on her quest. And we see what her life is like and what she's doing. And then we have another timeline that is in the future where we follow a podcast, and the podcast is trying to find out what happened to Sadie. So if you like these kind of true crime things, I think that this audiobook is especially great because you have that true crime feeling with the podcast bits. And I thought that was done very cleverly. I think whenever there's a podcast in a book, I do prefer to listen to the audiobook because that just feels more authentic to me. And then you can also really hear if it's written well, because if it doesn't sound like a podcast, then there's probably something wrong with the writing as well. So I thought the audiobook for Sadie was definitely the way to go. This is also a YA story, but I think it still gets quite dark. It has heavy themes, and then also the ending is a little bit special, and I think depending on how you like your books, you will love it or hate it. I liked the ending. I think that it worked for what the book did, so I would definitely recommend Sadie. And then another book that is a bit similar but is more horror than thriller is Rules for Vanishing, and also Our Last Echoes, which is kind of a sequel to Rules for Vanishing. And in Rules for Vanishing, we are following, again, a girl who's looking for her missing sister. I see something there. And she believes that her sister went on this mysterious road that appears once in a year or something in the woods, and so she wants to walk this road to see whether she can find her sister. And then a group of her friends decide to do that as well, so in the end we have a group of teenagers who come together to try to walk this road. And this is horror. It definitely has a lot of fantastical elements to it, and I absolutely loved the story. I think the way this is horror just really works for me. It's very strange and dark and definitely creepy for a YA book. But what makes this a great audiobook is that we have, again, different parts to this. We do have a narrative where we follow our main character and where she tells us what's going on. And this is done in a kind of interview style. So in the framework, she is telling this to someone else. So it's kind of her testimony. And then we also get snippets of those interviews where we also see the people who are interviewing them and what's their goal, and kind of, have this little peek into this investigation. And then we also get documents, so some snippets of other things. Sometimes it is transcripts of what could be seen on video footage and stuff like that. And this whole mixture is produced with like different narrators, and I really enjoyed that. I think that it really elevated the book. And similar in Our Last Echoes, we do have a different story, a different main character. In this one, a girl is going to this Alaskan island to look for her missing mother, and we do have like other weird things. It's not the road, it is parts of that island that are very creepy, but the whole narration style is very similar. So I think if you like one, you will like the other one as well. So I definitely recommend those. And the next book is kind of similar, but to the extreme, because the next audiobook I want to recommend is a graphic audiobook. And this is the first one I experienced. There's many out there, so I'm sure you can also try other ones if you're not intrigued by this particular book. But I experienced my first graphic audiobook with Elantris. Now, I did not read the full book as the graphic audiobook, but I definitely plan to do that in the future as a reread. But I read it as an ebook and then listened to some parts of it as the graphic audiobook. And what a graphic audiobook is that they try to make it sound more like a movie. So they will take out little snippets like she said or he said or blah 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 said. They will take this out of the writing and it will sound more like actual dialogue. And then you will also get effects, like if there is a fight, you will hear like swords clashing, or if they're going through a crowded area, you will hear some chatter in the background and stuff like that. And so it just feels even more immersive, and I really enjoyed that. I think that graphic audiobooks are actually quite fun. I think they are, for me personally, a fun way to re-experience a story. Because for some reason in my weird mind, I'm always like, yeah, but I want to read the full story first. It's not like they leave out important parts, but they do leave out some parts that might not be so important, or sometimes they rephrase things so it fits better into this like more movie-like style. And for me personally, I always think I want to read the story in the way that it was intended first. But for a reread, I think these graphic audiobooks are really cool. And I definitely want to try more, especially in the fantasy genre. I think it is so fun to like have those background noises and then have like different voices for different characters and hear them interact. It's really cool. So I wanted to mention one of those as well. Okay, then the next audiobooks I want to recommend are special to me because they are read by the author. So I think that can really enhance the experience to hear the author's voice when they tell the story that they want to tell, or when they tell you about their lives. And the first example is a memoir. So this is actually telling what happened to this person, and that is Know My Name. And I would recommend this book to everyone on this planet. I think this is one of the best books about sexism, about rape culture, and yeah, just how unequal this world is to men and women. And so I love this book, and this is read by the author. And I think where you can really tell that is in the end, when she's reading out the actual statement that she read in court. Now, if you don't know about this book, this one is the memoir of the girl who was the victim in this, like, I think it's called the Stanford, I don't know what it was called. It was really big, like a few years ago, like 10 years ago or something. So it is a very important case in the US, especially when it comes to rape culture and seeing how that affects how the perpetrators get treated. And that's what you explore in this book. So you see everything from the day that the rape occurred to like through all of the like court dealings and stuff like that. And it is just such an important story to tell, to really show all the flaws in the justice system that make it so hard for victims to actually get any justice at all. And as I was saying, Chanel Miller read a statement in court before I think the sentencing happened, and that is also at the end of this book, and you can hear so much emotion when she reads that out again, also knowing what the sentencing was, which was ridiculous. And so yeah, I love that audiobook. I think it's probably the best audiobook I've ever listened to, let's be real, just because of the impact it has. And then very, very different, but also an audiobook that is narrated by the author, and that is Beauty Queens. And I had always heard mixed things about this. This is kind of a Lord of the Flies retelling, but all of the characters are girls. And I loved this book. It was so much fun. Again, this is a YA, and I had no idea that Libba Bray would be such a great audiobook narrator. I am so happy that she read this herself, and especially what I love is a good accent in an audiobook. Like, English is not my first language, so hearing all kinds of accents, if it's American accents, or if it's African accents, or if it is British accents, I love them all. I think it just gives so much to the story to actually hear accents that fit the characters, because I can't produce them in my own head. So that's why I love audiobooks for that. And so in this one, we have a character who has a fantastic, to me, Texan accent. Now take this with a grain of salt, because I have no idea what accents sound like, but I love the way it sounded in this audiobook, and it just gave that character so much more than it could have been when I just read it with my eyeballs, you know? So I love that. It's one of my favorite like YA fun audiobooks, and I would definitely recommend it, especially because it is an older YA book. And I'm not saying it's flawless, but it's really fun, and I think it holds up quite well. So check that one out. Then I just wanted to include one audiobook that I really loved that is narrated by my favorite narrator of audiobooks, and that is Barney Turpin. Now obviously this differs a lot. Like, a lot of people like different narrators, and that's fine, but my favorite, my personal favorite, is Barney Turpin, to the point where I will actually listen to stories I'm not that excited about just because I know that she's reading the audiobook. So the one that I would definitely recommend, where I loved the story and the narration, was The Hate You Give. Now it has been a while that I have read this book, and I know that maybe it doesn't hold up perfectly, but it still at the time was such an important book, I think, for all of publishing that happened afterwards. Now in The Hate You Give, we follow a young girl who is black, but she goes to school that is majority white, and she has to suffer through a horrific event where her best friend is shot because police thought he had a weapon, but it was really just a hairbrush. So this is a theme that has been like really important for many years now, especially in the US, but not only that. We have so much police brutality against people of color, and this is what this book deals with, and also like the different perspectives, like how the community of this girl reacts to this murder, and how her white friends at her school react and stuff like that. So definitely also a harder read, but one I really enjoyed. So I still want to recommend it, but just look up audiobooks that Barney Turpin reads and just choose one, because it is a delight. I love her audiobooks so much. For example, she also read the what's it called? The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and also some others. So I'm currently listening to one that she's narrating, and it's great. I love her. Her voice is just perfect to me, and all the like voices she does are perfect to me. So I had to shout her out, definitely. And then last but not least, I wanted to mention one audiobook, or audiobook series actually, that just works really well for me, because the book is about telling stories, and so I think that listening to those stories then on audiobook just enhances the experience by a lot. And that would be the Singing Hills cycle, starting with the Empress of Salt and Fortune. And this one we follow a monk and their bird, and they go around collecting stories. That's what they do. And so these are little novellas, and in each novella we meet different characters and they tell their story to the monk. And because of this like fairy tale-esque like storytelling aspect, these just work perfectly as audiobooks. And I have so far read the first two, really loved both of those, and I can't wait to continue on. I think by now we have 4 novellas out in that series, so I wanted to give those a big shout out as well. Obviously there's other stories as well where the storytelling is an important part of it, but with these, as I said, just like how they feel like fairy tales as well. When you listen to these audiobooks, it's just as if your mum is reading you like fairy tales when you're a child. It's like lovely, and I would definitely recommend checking those audiobooks out. So that would be all for this little recommendation video. As I said in the beginning, definitely let me know what are some audiobooks that really worked for you, where you had the feeling that listening to the audiobook enhanced the story for you in any way. I would love to hear about that, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!